Yo, so I'm Maruno, and the reason I'm on the internet today is because I want to talk about God. And really, like, I don't know why people believe the things they do about a creator God. I guess I shouldn't say I don't know why. I don't know why they believe it. It kind of makes sense why they believe it, but why they continue to believe it and continue to and basically just have it as it is and not continue to expand on it is like kind of like beyond me. But um, I think when most people think about God, they're thinking about like this creator that is kind of like putting us to a test, but like um, that idea has never made sense to me. So I don't really know why people subscribe to that. So I'm here to kind of like help you notice, if you haven't noticed already, which you probably haven't, that the answer to that God question is that God is you. So the first thing to break down is that like there's no actual separations in this universe. So even though there's things and they seem to be separate from each other, there's no real separations. Um, so like separating things didn't happen in our in your so like okay, let's take it from the beginning, right? So in the beginning, when you were an infant, you didn't really know what was happening, but you at the same time did know what was happening. Like you kind of like you were breathing and you were like making noises and shit, and like you were like crying for food, and it was like you were aware, but you weren't consciously aware of it. And by consciously aware, I mean you weren't actually like making any judgments about what was happening, and you weren't really recollecting anything, and you weren't really holding on to anything. It was kind of just like, I'm in this situation, and there was no difference between what you were and what you were experiencing. So you kind of like knew at that time that like everything that was happening to you was you. But then like as you grew up, you kind of like learn language, and then you learn to make distinctions about different things in your environment, and you learn to like have opinions about things in your environment. And basically that kind of like from that point on, you slowly like lost that connection to the truth. Like you actually at this point probably genuinely believe in differences. You probably genuinely feel like there's all these things. Like there's like there's people, there's there's other animals, there's plants, there's different like there's just like all type of, there's like the sky, there's the sun, there's like all these things that you are just naming them different things, and you actually believe that these things are separate from each other, as if they could exist like alone. So in order to like kind of understand how there's no separations between anything, formally what this is called is duality. And what I'm trying to help you notice right now is that the nature of the universe is non-dual. There is no duality. So there's no separations between anything that's happening. So it's not possible for there to be two separate things. So in order for there to really be two separate things, it would have to be like it would almost have to be like two separate universes. Like so I got this microphone right here, right? Me and this microphone are not in a different universe. I can see that I can make a distinction with my senses right now that the microphone is right here, but in truth, this microphone is the same energy that I am. Like this is being produced. This universe, like how can I say this? So like maybe I would say I'm conscious. I'm conscious, and this microphone is not conscious, right? But this microphone is asserting itself in this universe right now. It's imposing its will right here. It's like it exists. It knows what it's doing. Like even though it's kind of like a man-made object, every molecule of this microphone, it knows it's there. It's doing what it wants to do, basically, which is impose itself right there. And it's like it's just as much a part of the fabric of reality as my physical body is, right? So in other words, anything that I call me, so like my identity, for example, my ego, my physical location. It always depends on something else. Like I'm always having to relate it to something else. So like if like let's say for example, I think I'm cool, right? So like if I think I'm cool, then what I'm also doing at the same time is I'm implying that there are other people or other things or other something else is not cool. So in order for it to make sense that something is cool, there has to be something else that's not cool. But what I'm really talking about is the same thing. There's no actual difference between something that is cool and something that is not cool. It's like you're just talking about a spectrum, basically. You're talking about a vibrational pattern. So like we can do some more examples like up and down. So if I say something is up, if my hand is up, I'm just implying that something is down, right? Like I'm just implying down is somewhere else. So if this is up, where my hand is right now is up, then I'm just saying, okay, this is down, right? But it's not, I didn't actually like move my hand to a different universe. It's just like boom, up, down, right? So it's like there's like a continuum of up downness that I think a better analogy probably would be like a coin, right? So you would say a coin has two sides, right? A coin has a heads and a tails. But the head and the tails, the head of the coin and the tail of the coin are not separate from each other. They absolutely depend on each other. So like the reason you know one side is head is because the other side is tail. You can call heads and tails are just words. Like you can say A side or B side, whatever you want to call it, side one, side two. But there's always a side one and a side two. There's no way to cut a coin so that there's only one side. There's no way that you could ever remove one side of a coin because what you're talking about is a coin. So you could say that the coin is the ultimate truth and the sides are the illusions of separateness. So that's a confusion that we get lost in, and it's not, there's so many of these different things that it's so hard to see it. It's hard to notice it because you just have conditioned yourself to just like make so many different distinctions that it's just like, damn, bro, like it's just so hard to get out of that. Like you've made so many separations. Like you have all these preferences. Like your ego is so strong. Like you've developed all these different like ideas about what things should be and what things shouldn't be. So if you have an idea about the way something should be, you're just implying, you just created the shouldn't. You just created like, if you think people should be nice to each other, you're implying that there are mean people, right? But someone being mean to you, someone being mean or nice is always based on the subject. So I may say one thing and someone may get offended by it, and then I could say something and like a whole bunch of people would get offended by it, and then a whole bunch of people wouldn't get offended. They would just understand. Like if I say something like shit, I like big booty bitches, right? If I say I like big booty bitches, there's gonna be a collection of people that are like, why would he say bitches? Why would he call, what is he? He's talking about women. He's calling women bitches. Like, why? And why would he say that? That's just so vulgar. And they're upset by that. So that they're like offended, right? That's mean. But then there's also a whole collection of other people that would say like, yeah, I like big booty bitches too. Like, yeah, that makes sense to me, bro. Like, yeah, right on, right? So it's like the statement, I like big booty bitches, is not good or bad. It's just based on who said it and who heard it. So, everything in the universe is like that though. So, let me see some other examples, like colors, for example. So like the reason we can understand colors is because there are other colors. The reason we can make distinctions between colors is because there are other colors, right? So like colors are basically just like the way the vibrations in the universe are reflecting, and it's just like there's a lot of science that could explain that, but I'm more focused on the experience of it because I think the experience is what people want to connect to, right? So I can understand blue because red exists. If the only color in the universe was blue, there would be no way to tell the difference between anything. It would just be like everything would be solid blue, right? Like there would be no like, imagine everything in the shot right now is all blue. You would just be like looking at a blue screen. Not even only in the shot, like you wouldn't be able to make any fucking distinctions between anything. Like if everything is all blue, you wouldn't even be able to tell what's happening at all. Like you would be it would be like floating in a blue pool just hearing me. So you would be able to hear, but you wouldn't be able to perceive anything. It would just be like fucking sounds just coming at you, right? So obviously these distinctions are important, because the aperture that you are is a human being, right? So everything that you see, so the colors that you see are related to your organism, right? You're a human. So like all the colors that you see are like necessary. So like in some way necessary for survival. You could say like maybe the reason you want to be able to tell the difference between like blue and green is because like you want to know where like blueberries are or whatever the fuck. Like you want to see red because you want to know where apples are. Like you want to be able to pick out the apples in the like if there's a tree and all the leaves are green, but you see these red spots, you're like, oh, that's where the apple is, right? So that's what you need to survive, right? And there are animals that are colorblind, right? There are animals that can't even see in the light. They're like owls, for example. Like owls are nocturnal animals, right? So they are active at night. So a human is weak in that situation, but you wouldn't say like the situation that an owl is in is better or worse than the situation that a human is in. You would just say it just is what it is, right? So I don't know if any of these examples like made any sense. Hopefully they did, but the main gist of what I'm trying to like explain is that there's no actual difference between anything that's happening at all. Anything that you can imagine, anything that you can experience is all that basic energetic force. It's that principle that's happening. It's yes and no. So like so I guess you could say in all, if you want to encapsulate this experience, there is something. So you could call anything in this universe just something. So you could say this is something, this is something, this is something, this is something, right? So there's something, and the background of it all is nothing. So in fact, our experience does come out of nowhere. If you want an illustration of that, you can go to we can like talk about sound. So a person who is able to hear is hearing sound and silence at the same time. Someone who can't hear, like for example, someone who can't hear, like you could either imagine it as they aren't hearing anything or they are hearing something constantly. So if someone has a constant pitch in their ears that's just fucking like blaring, right? And it's just blaring and there's no room for quiet, that person is deaf. And in the same way, if there's someone who is like not hearing anything, that person is deaf, right? So someone who is able to hear is hearing sound and silence. There's no way to describe sound to someone who's deaf. In the same way, there's no way to describe vision to someone who is blind. Someone who is born blind, for example, that person, light and darkness don't mean anything to that person. So like, if you imagine that someone who's blind is just seeing darkness all the time, that's not what's happening. That person who's blind, they can't see shit, bro. Like they can't understand what you mean when you say, oh, it's dark in here, or oh, it's bright out here. Like they can't understand what you mean. They just can't see shit. So, and they could never describe to you what's replacing their sense of vision. They couldn't describe it to you because they can't fucking see, bro. Like they just can't. It's just nothing is happening. So, and nothing is where you came out of. So like, your experience came out of nowhere. You just suddenly just started fucking happening, right? And the reason you can't remember what was happening is because nothing was happening and there was no one to experience it. So this does get deep, and it can be hard to understand at first, especially if your mind has always been in a state of like duality for your whole experience. Like you constantly, it can be hard to break out of that situation where you're constantly making division and constantly like making separations between things. But I think this is something that's important to understand for everyone, because like if you can understand this, you suddenly will just like not have these strong like opinions. Like for example, like your hatred or your anger, your depression, feelings that people or feelings that you like, giving those feelings or receiving those feelings of like anger or depression, or like you suddenly see that like all these things that are happening are just a product of that energy, that ultimate energy. It's just, and it's just kind of like, it just needs to be like that. So your judgments aren't necessary. You don't need to hear something. If somebody says they like big booty bitches, you don't need to have an opinion about somebody liking big booty bitches. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can just hear that and be like, oh, okay, that person likes big booty bitches. You know, if somebody is like, if somebody is is gay or something like that, right? Like, you don't need to have an opinion about somebody being gay, like in any real serious way. Like you're never gonna lose your preferences, because that's what like makes us individual, right? You're never gonna lose your preferences, but you lose that like seriousness. Like, you lose that like the fate of the universe, fucking the fate of my experience depends on my opinion. Like, I need to push for my opinion. So if you're like a straight, like I know a lot of straight people that are like anti-gay, for example. Like, they feel like they need to like do something about gay people. Like, they feel like gay people are wrong. Like, they feel like gay people are just, this is a perfect example. So gay people are just as natural, just as much of an anomaly as a straight person. Anyone who's straight does not know why they're straight. They can't explain it. This is a perfect time to talk about it too, because I think it's Pride Month, right? Like, someone who is heterosexual cannot explain why they're heterosexual. They just feel like that, and it's just because the energy that they are is expressing through that vessel like that. They're just like, they can't help it, right? So when you can understand this understanding opens up a whole like sense of like empathy and understanding for every other type of situation, like every other type of experience that someone else is going through. Like, it makes you able to understand like, oh, these people are just experiencing the situation the way they experience it. Like, there's nothing that needs to be done about it. It just is what it is, right? So through this understanding, you end up losing identification with that ego that you have. You built up this separate identity. You think that there's something inside of you that is separate from your body. There's something that's just like guiding you through this experience, like something that needs to be sustained, right? Like, something that needs to be like fought for, right? But you don't need that. You really don't need that. When you let go of that, you start to like, you start to emanate this sort of like, your identity becomes more one. It becomes more one with what's happening. It becomes more like, you can become more like the original child that you were before your energy got stifled. You had all these experiences in your life that kind of changed the way you express yourself. You know, like if you're a kid and your parents tell you to do this, to not do that, to not do something a certain way that you wanted to do it and do it like this, now you suddenly learn that, and it's not your parents' fault, but like, it's not your parents' fault for doing that to you. Your parents obviously just want what's best for you, but like, that energy is what you really are, that authentic energy, that energy that can be reconnected to. You can reconnect to that original joy, that original sense of like wonder and it will unlock your creative potential when you can understand that things don't have to be a certain way. There's no plan for this situation. There's nowhere it's going. It can't go anywhere. Bro, this bum ass camera just died in the middle of me talking. Like, that shit was just rude as fuck, bruh. Like, but I guess it's fitting because I'm talking about the nature of reality and how there's no plan. Obviously, it's like the battery has its own situation going on. Like, that's just another example of how everything is happening all at once. There's no separation between events or anything like that. But I guess I'll just wrap it up. That was kind of like a cue, I guess. So I hope it makes sense. If you got any questions, you can like hit me up and I'll be happy to answer any questions you got about it. But yeah, I see you later, God.